Hi guys, Tony Maritato here, licensed physical therapist, and joining me in just a couple moments is Tyler Bishop. So Tyler is the CMO, the Chief Marketing Officer for Ezoic, and my hope is that Tyler is going to share some information. They have a ton of information at Ezoic related to monetizing a website and all the information about building a business online. Because I understand as a healthcare provider myself, I'm a licensed physical therapist, I'm a private practice owner. Healthcare is under pressure, both with the slowing economy, but then also reduced reimbursement, increased regulation. We need to figure out alternative revenue streams. And so my goal here today is that Tyler will share the information we need to learn how we can monetize our websites, how we can increase our profitability without sacrificing time dedicated to direct patient care. So let me see if I can bring Tyler in and introduce him to you. All right. So Tyler, thank you so much for joining us. I already did a little intro before you came on today, but just briefly, because I've been binge watched every one of your interviews. I know you inside and out. I know you're into mixed martial arts and jujitsu, which I grew up in a dojo. I love Brazilian
Oh,
jiu-jitsu.
awesome.
Yeah. And so for the audience, I mentioned that you were the CMO of Ezoic. Could you just tell us a little bit about your position with the company and tell us about the company? What exactly does Ezoic do?
Yeah, so yeah, I'm our CMO, and I've been with our business since our very early days of an idea that basically became a large company that has kind of changed the way that really digital publishing is operated. And really, what we do is, if you think about it, it's better to understand sort of how advertising works on the web. Where right now, I'm sure most people are aware that advertisers will buy the majority of their digital ad spend through someone like Google or Facebook. It's where you look at the majority of ad dollars that are spent in the world globally, whether it's the US or across the world, they go into these platforms and they're programmatically bought, which means automated. So that means that, when you're getting targeted, there's a lot of, discussion about this now about like things like cookie and privacy and data and who owns what. All that information is being used to target individuals for products, for advertisements. Now, it gets really granular, but it's changed advertising because it allows advertisers to get the ROI from, an audience that really was never possible before. However, publishers are still really stuck in a lot of ways with the same technologies and sort of methods that they were, I'm not joking, centuries ago, where, like you would say, I mean, the language that they use in the space is still really old, above the fold, impressions, things like that. And so our business was really, it was to modernize this and make it so that publishers had the exact same types of technologies available to them to be able to basically monetize content like a product the same way that advertisers are buying ads in a modern digital era.
That's awesome. Now you mentioned monetized content. And so, I come from a physical therapy background. I am a physical therapist. I treat patients on a daily basis. I own a private practice. And most of the audience who are going to be watching this are physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech language pathologists. Some are going to be even physicians. And the reason why I wanted to reach out to you is because you have such a depth of knowledge between your experience and everything that you've done. I think when most people hear about this interview, they're going to think of it from the advertising side, because that's what most of us do. We run ads, we want patients in our clinic, but I want to flip it around. We're under so much pressure. Obviously, the economy is slowing down. The cost of healthcare is going up. There's practically no innovation in delivery of healthcare services. And so running a private practice from any healthcare provider standpoint, it's challenging. I mean, we don't have the money, the profitability that we used to have. And so when I found out that I could connect with a company like Ezoic, I could put ads on my website, because I was building my website to attract new patients. That was the goal behind my website. And then it pivoted to, there's so many people who need answers to questions, simple questions. You come from an athletic background. I'm sure at some point somebody would ask you, well, should I put heat or ice on an injury?
Yep.
What's the best kind of, weightlifting? Should I do machines or should I do free weights? And I was like, really, we should be the ones answering these questions. So I started putting out answers to these questions. My particular niche is total knee replacement. I created a YouTube channel. We're up to 25,000 subscribers. We're doing over 1.5 million views a year. And so
It's amazing.
I said, how can I monetize the knowledge, the experience, the time I've had in a way that doesn't detract from patient care? Because I still love what I do, treating patients. And that's where Ezoic was introduced to me. That's where the idea of putting ads on the website was introduced, because I don't have a huge website, but I was getting 30, 40,000 page views a month. And
Sure.
it was just kind of sitting there. It wasn't doing anything. So I would love to hear from you, either from experience working with other healthcare providers or seeing kind of how, adding ads to a website helps to monetize what's going on, the knowledge inside the healthcare provider's head. Like, what kind of experience or examples could you share with us?
Yeah, so I think it tees it up really nicely, and I think what you're talking about in a lot of cases. I find that individuals that are in a lot of cases in the position that you are, there's a certain amount of entrepreneurship that takes place there, and I think if I look at sort of I think people would be surprised to learn that just the quantity of publishers that are out there. And when I say publishers, I mean people that run websites with content on them and are able to monetize that content. And it's some people it's a side hustle, for some people it's their full-time gig, but hundreds of thousands of these publishers use our technology, and you wouldn't believe some of the stories that I've heard over time. But I'm an evangelist for it, because if you're a friend of mine, at some point I've probably told you need to start a website, because one of the first websites I ever created was on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I covered news. I would keep stats from different events that weren't available. Nobody else had it. I thought it was interesting, so I did it for fun. And then one day I put ads on the site, and I was actually kind of surprised. At the end of the month, I was like, this is real money. Like, is this for real? Like, is this actually happening? Am I going to get a check in the mail for this much? And I was surprised. And I think one of the things that, speaks to your audience in particular is that when you either are passionate about a topic, or in a lot of cases already have put together content that's sort of like proprietary to you. And I don't mean proprietary knowledge, but I mean, like, if you work with a patient, or you're have a particular protocol that you're always putting up and having your patients, you're emailing them it, or they're downloading it or printing it, you already have that content. And one of the things that really is lacking on the web, and this is something that Google and pretty much every major platform that will essentially allow you to reach an audience is doing, is they're looking for this form of expertise. Because if you go out and you try to search for a protocol or a program for a particular injury, or a condition, I was telling you before we started, I actually owned a injury health website for a while, mainly just because I've had lots of injuries. I'm just an experienced patient. And I was really surprised at how I was able to beat out in search results institutions like WebMD and things like that. But if you read those answers from a patient's perspective online, you find that it's a medical textbook's answer to a question. And as a patient, I was always looking to figure out, like, do I need to go and get this looked at? Is it ultimately going to be a surgery? After 4 weeks, am I going to start feeling better or not? Because it's still kind of sore. You're looking for insight. And, one of the things that you don't want is basically a bunch of patients online, like, kind of sharing their objective experiences. What you want is professionals on there that are sharing that information. So I think that there's a gap in our market. And what I've seen over time is that, publishers that step in here, they don't have to know a lot about publishing if they know a lot about their topic. A great example of this is one of my favorite publishers. He's been one of our longest. His name's Saul, and he was a psychology professor back in the early 2000s. And he would just put his notes up online on a free website he got through his internet service provider. Cut to, he makes tens of thousands of dollars a month off of what started out as just him publishing his notes online. So it's probably more accessible than what most people would think.
And I think that's so true. Like, you saying that he was making tens of thousands of dollars. I know before I stepped into this world. So I created our first website back in 2003. Not, it was such a long time ago. I was using Microsoft Front Page. I had no idea what I was doing, but somehow I got a page job. And for probably 15 years, the site got no traffic. And I just assumed that when I hear people say the kind of things that you're saying, like a site could make thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, I just thought that's crazy. There is no way, like logically, it doesn't make sense.
Yep.
And then somehow, somewhere, a blog post of mine caught some traction back in 2020. And all of a sudden I started seeing some traffic. I was like, whoa, like 1,000 page views. That's incredible. I've been 20 years and never got more than 10 page views. And, you know, as this kind of snowball effect happened, now for the first time, I can actually see examples of sites, not mine, but I'll share my numbers in just a minute, that are doing tens of thousands of dollars a month. And when I look at that for healthcare providers, and I think like for my site, we're almost at 1 year. This is almost the 1 year anniversary. I started November 15th with Ezoic. I just looked at my total revenue for the time I've been on. I'm just over $5,000, almost 5,500. And to me, as the practice owner, that reflects a couple of things. Like one, amazing that this is content that I was putting out anyway. I wasn't expecting to get paid for it. Two, it's content that establishes me as an expert in the market.
Yeah.
But three, for my business to generate $5,500 in profit, I would be looking at $50,000 in revenue. You know, that's a whole lot of work. That's a whole lot of liability. That's a whole lot of risk and compliance and other things that we deal with in healthcare that I've been able to monetize, really just answers to questions I deliver every single day. Every single patient walking in my door asks me the same question, where before I was reinventing the wheel every time. Now you know, to take a line from Gary Vee, I'm not creating content. I'm documenting what I do. I'm capturing the content and making it available. And so on a small website like mine, single owner operator, you know, tiny clinic, I mean, to be able to generate the equivalent profit of a $50,000 to $70,000 in revenue is amazing. Now, I want to hear a little bit about Humix. Humix is a new program you guys are rolling out. You heard me say earlier, like I'm a huge YouTube guy. I watched every one of your interviews on YouTube. I've got thousands and thousands of YouTube videos, some private, some public. We're growing multiple YouTube channels. How does Humix come into play with this? What's its place in the market for my website, but then also with what's going on with video in general?
Yeah. So if you look at the trends, and this is something you know, I've talked about a couple times recently, but I don't know that I've got a chance to get in depth with it. And I think the trend shows over time. I mean, you can think about it just, you know, your own personal experiences and stuff, just searching the web. If you look at search results, or you look at, you know, pick an app that, you know, a news app or anything like that, they all have embedded video now. And a big reason why is because that's what users want. You know, funny enough, it's I didn't get it at first. I probably look at more video now than I used to. But one of the things that I always say is like, don't follow my behaviors. Is I can't pay attention to mine. I have to always ask. My wife teaches children, and I will often ask her, you know, what are the kids doing these days on the phones? She teaches jujitsu, and I think it's interesting because the video aspect is really on the rise. And I think what I've heard recently is I've talked to publishers that are like, well, I think I missed the video thing, or that's for these people that really understand YouTube. And this is the beginning. This is like people saying, you know, 7 or 8 years ago, I think I've missed the wagon on this mobile thing. Like that, I should have started way earlier if I want to get in on, you know, sort of this mobile first revolution. And that's really the time whenever it's just, this is the time to get on now. I mean, I don't think we're anywhere close to the peak. But if you think about where a lot of the video on the web is basically hosted and where it lives, it's on YouTube. And if you look at the majority of videos that are placed on websites or in search results, they're from YouTube, because that's where the video is. And the reason for this for the longest time is because that's where the reach is. And the parallel that I'll draw between Humix and where I think we fit in terms of like the value is YouTube provides publishers with an audience. You create content, you can access it through YouTube. It might take a lot of time, you know, it's like arduous to sometimes build subscribers or get attention. But Amazon was that way for retailers. You know, they at first were maybe apprehensive, but eventually you realize, look, I have this access to all these consumers. I might as well try to feed this beast and hope it doesn't eat me. And that's exactly what's happening with YouTube as well. You're sort of playing by their rules, and the rules are not always like in your favor. They're at least not in your best interest. And so along came something called Shopify for retailers, and it basically gave individual owner operators, Amazon in a box. You could run your own Amazon from your site, and you could own and operate it and get rid of all those middleman costs. And we've seen, a lot of retailers become their basically get off of Amazon and keep more of their money, and you can start to expand that reach. And that's what Humix does for publishers. It basically takes all the features of YouTube, allows you to monetize your own video. You don't have to reach some threshold. You don't have to have subscribers. And really the biggest benefit here is, you would say, well, YouTube, how do I get that audience? Well, that's the nice thing about Humix is because of our footprint at Ezoic, we actually have more monthly viewers than Snapchat. So that's a big audience. And what we do is we actually take publishers and we allow them to share videos across channels and across sites. And this allows relevant videos that you have on other sites that might be relevant or channels to appear. And then you can share in that revenue and vice versa. So when you upload a video to YouTube, you twiddle your thumbs and hope that either you've got a big subscriber base that you can market it to, or eventually an algorithm starts kind of popping your video up to searchers. With Humix, you upload a video, and then that day, people are going to be seeing and viewing your video. You're going to make probably 10 times as much as you would on something like a YouTube. And if somebody is helping you share that video, they're splitting it with you. So you can also share someone else's relevant content. So it allows for this sort of exponential growth. I've been telling people, if you have web content and you've got articles, we actually have a tool that will take your articles and turn it into video, good video, and you can edit it and move things around. But then if you throw it onto Humix, and then you can still upload it to YouTube if you want, you're almost quadruple dipping on this front. So you take one piece of content and you can get 3 to 4x out of it, and you can grow a lot faster than what people could in the past. And that's really why we built Ezoic, was to give people that maybe lack the resources as somebody that's like a professional in another career or something like that, that's trying to be a publisher part-time, or even just publishers that it's if it's a one man or one woman shop, that's a lot of things to be an expert on, but also it's a lot of work creating content. So if you can get 3 to 4x out of a piece of content that you make, and that makes you a lot more efficient, a lot more effective.
Now, I've got a question for you, but I want to kind of review a couple of things for the audience watching, because I think this is such a new concept. I think it's going to kind of go past a bunch of people. So like you said, on YouTube, you have to grow an audience, you have to gain subscribers, you can't show ads, or YouTube will show ads actually before you're even monetized, and you don't get any of that income until you're monetized on YouTube. We know YouTube, 1,000 subscribers, 4,000 hours of watch time. With Humix, with your platform, from day one, as soon as you upload the video, the ads are showing, and it's revenue that's being generated into your account. So if I was a brand new creator that wanted to get into video, I wouldn't stop using YouTube. I'd still put it up there for the YouTube audience, but I would absolutely be uploading my video to Humix. And that's what I do personally. I upload to YouTube, I upload to Humix, I embed from Humix into my blog post, so that if a person comes to me, my website, if they just want to read, if they just want to skim and see the headlines, they can do that. But if they want to watch video, when I went to change the brakes in my car, I didn't watch a video. I wanted to read the instructions, but when I changed the headlight, I watched the video, so there's a time and a place for both. What I wanted to go back to, and this is a question I honestly don't know the answer to. I just heard and watched how YouTube is moving into podcasting. They've got YouTube for podcasters and stuff like that. Can I upload a video podcast to Humix, whether it's video like we're doing right now, or it's the little, sound wave video for a podcast? Is that something I can put on your platform that also gets monetized with ads?
So you can upload the video, absolutely.
Yeah.
So in terms of just audio and having it indexed in audio index, that's something that we're actually looking at in the future. So, but yeah, podcast, absolutely. It's
video podcast on Humix that would come into the website. I was even wondering the other part for, individuals that are visually impaired, like I would imagine whether it be me reading the blog post or some sort of voice to text to voice plugin, I could record a video reading the narrative from the website, and that would go into Humix. And that would be a way that somebody could consume the content if they want to hear it and not necessarily read it.
Yeah, and I think, I think I'll kind of stack onto that and say, you know, that is definitely a need. Every year, and we do a strategy session at the start of the year, and we look at a lot of different opportunities and things that we want to do and how we can, help our customers maybe take advantage of something. And that's a market that's really underserved, by the way, is the sort of accessibility thing. You'd be surprised. And the field of content there is very, very shallow compared to, like traditional content on the web. But that said, podcasts, the thing that I think is really interesting about this is with something like article to video, or I mean, honestly, just even the podcasts themselves, there's a lot of people out there that have just these audio episodes someplace, but you could upload that as some sort of video with, you've got that audio overlay with it. You could use a tool like ours to basically just toss in some stock footage and things like that sort of like go along with it. And then next thing you know, you've got, like, again, you're reusing this content to really monetize it across a network that has a pretty significant reach. Some of it's just understanding that those opportunities exist. And I think that that's probably one of the number one things that publishers struggle with when they start. If I look at our publishers that have been the most successful, most of the time they start out as sort of passionate at first, or some kind of like, they didn't really I think about the ones like Saul or someone like yourself, like a lot of times they sort of start without any, dreams of making a lot of money off their content on the internet. And then somewhere along the way, they sort of figure out that they can. And then, over a couple of years, they figured it out. And I always joke around, one of my favorites, small business trends, Anita Campbell, who's such a humble person. She served on congressional committees and things like that. But she always says, well, I'm accidentally successful. And I think that a lot of people can probably relate to that.
Right. I could totally see that. Let me ask you, one of the things that I've always been obsessed with, I mean, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I'm a physical therapist because it's my passion. It's more my hobby. But that being said, creating value from where it didn't exist. When a physical therapist or any really healthcare provider looks at their business, they want to think of an exit strategy. They want to think of building value. Are they going to be acquired? Are they going to shut it down, pass it along to someone else? And a component of that value is a profitable website. So before I even understood this, world of monetization, I would look at, okay, what's my net profit? What's my multiple if I want to sell the practice? I sold a physical therapy clinic down in Florida, 3 times net profit. It's a pretty standard multiple. Mm-hmm. Now, all of a sudden, I'm looking at these marketplaces for websites, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. If I can get a website to $3,000 in profit across display ads, maybe video monetization, and maybe some affiliate income or a digital product, all of a sudden I've got $100,000 asset sitting in my, portfolio. I know you're not in the world of selling websites, but I mean, how reasonable is that for a business owner to say, hey, I'm a small business owner for the most part, I don't have heavy, like hard assets that I'm going to sell. I'm a dentist, I'm a chiropractor, I'm a therapist. If I want to get out of this, if I have a website that's doing 3,000 a month, I mean, seems pretty reasonable with the multiples that I've been seeing that you would be able to sell that website, even if you didn't sell the practice with it or kept those as separate assets. What are your thoughts on that?
So I've seen this actually. I've seen it with a couple different things. But it's interesting because I've seen one with actually that used to be it was a personal trainer's website, and they actually had their namesake attached to it, but they kept their personal training business and sold the website. And I was always interested to see how that worked out. But the thing that I find really interesting is, so our background, like our origin story at Ezoic, but when we were originally building our technology, we wanted to automate stuff that basically, the New York Times was doing to run ads on their site, getting all the different forms of ad demand and advertisers out there. And the bidding and everything about advertising is complex. And we want to make it really easy just for anybody to be able to put, world-class, ad operations and, all the other kind of stuff on their site. And so whenever we did that, we ate our own dog food at first. So we started building technology. Our CEO, Dwayne, he had a portfolio of sites. He, used it, broke them, all that kind of stuff. And eventually we got to the point to where we got $6 million from a venture capital firm called Balderson Capital in the UK. And within 9 months, we bought close to 450 websites, and we got our money back in almost 9 months, which we told them after that, we recycled that money many times over. I mean, to this day, we still own most of those sites and just kind of like use them for experiments and things like that. But the multiples you mentioned, I can go back in time and think 6, 7, 8 years ago, sites were not worth what I've seen today. And you're right. Buying websites is as I'd be a seller before I'd be a buyer, if that makes sense. And the reason is because as a seller, the demand is definitely there. I think if you've got a good quality website with good content, there's somebody out there that will probably overpay you right now. And I don't see that changing in the foreseeable future, because it's such a dependable form of revenue. Because if you think about where you put your money as an investor, right? So like right now, there's apprehension about something like the stock market. That said, no one would ever predict in a million years that advertising spending is going to go down. And the percentage that goes to digital keeps going up. So if you look at the next 10 to 20 years, there's a really good bet on advertising. Well, you can't put money into, is advertising to go up or down? Like I'm sure there might be a casino out there that'd be willing to take that bet. But the best way to sort of take advantage of that is to have an asset that sort of appreciates on top of that, and one that essentially can grow. So it's a dividend paying as well. So it grows in value as you go. And a website is that. And so I think that there's a real high demand for it, and especially from institutional investors now. So you're seeing these kind of these hot shots out there now that are basically trying to buy as many sites as they can, lump them together in a portfolio so that they can actually have something for investors to invest in. So I would say if you can develop a business of that size, there's somebody out there that's willing to pay you for it.
Yeah. I did. I've recorded so many videos where I'm talking about, like, if I had $10,000, what's the best thing to do with it? $10,000 sitting in the bank is just going to get eaten away by inflation. 10,000 in the market, who knows if it's going to be worth 20% less or 20% more. But I could put 10,000 into content creation, into a website. It's a digital asset that's going to keep putting money back into my pocket as it grows on its own. And for healthcare providers, it's also putting patients inside your doors. It's also a marketing opportunity to bring people to you and monetize your business in so many other ways. So I want to be super mindful of your time. Before we wrap it up, I want to go like way back. I want to bring this way down to somebody who knows nothing about anything. You guys, because I remember when I first heard about Ezoic, it was a 10,000 visit a month or page view a month criteria before you could apply. Talk to the newbie, talk to the person that has a tiny little website. Maybe they're getting 10 page views a month. They have no idea, or a day, they have no idea what's going on. What is the process like? What if they say, hey, I'm going to make this happen, I'm going to do this. Where do I even start? So do they apply? What's the criteria? How do they connect with Ezoic?
Yeah, so I would say the biggest thing is, if you're just starting, I would say start and then just commit. Forget about any sort of measure of what you think the success should look like, and just plow through. The patience is the one quality that I find that the publishers that tend to find success over and over again, they're patient. The thing is I've seen people start sites and within 3 months, they're just off to the races. They're doing great. Sometimes these are the veterans and sometimes they're not. They're the inexperienced ones. But, usually if you stick with this for a year, 2 years, I can almost guarantee you're going to see success. So that's the first, is a word of encouragement. The second is you want to start up a site. If you've never started up a site before, most people probably have a domain. If not, there's a billion places out there that will allow you to buy a domain, register it, and set up a site all in one place. So you're going to be looking for a host, a domain name provider, and it's not very expensive, and you can start off on something simple like that. And then once you have that, depending on how, technical you are or aren't, WordPress is a really easy CMS to use. We will have some tools here relatively soon that will allow people to do things a lot easier than just setting up a WordPress site. But either way, WordPress is pretty simple. You can install it from your host, usually with a click of a button. You get in there, it's not very hard. You could probably find a video or two online that would show you at least how to write content. You can use the default theme. It doesn't need to look fancy. One of the things that I always point out to people is if you look at Wikipedia in 2012 and you look at it today, it is exactly the same. There's no difference. And it's very, very plain, white background, black text, because that's what people want. When people want content, they don't need a lot of like complicated stuff. They just want the information. And so if you can just provide that information and make it a habit of putting it up onto your site and publishing it, eventually you'll start to figure out little things here and there that allow you to sort of better market your content. And that's the first thing that I would start with, is figuring out how can I, outside of search engines and waiting on them, how can I find places online, forums, patients, email newsletters and things like that you may already have through your patients and things like that. Send them that content, because driving traffic to that site is usually one of the fastest ways to sort of like start to organically snowball sort of the visitors that would come to it. And yeah, that'd be my advice. And I appreciate you taking the time to chat about it. This is what I love to do. So yeah, I can talk about it all day.
Yeah, and just a couple of things you didn't mention that I do think is important. So now there is no more minimum criteria to join the Ezoic network.
Yeah, that's right.
Ezoic does have Ezoic Leap, which I used to use WP Rocket, speed up my website and improve my load times. Now I switched everything over to Leap, and it does a great job, and it's free. It doesn't cost me the $100 that WP Rocket used to cost me. And really the tech support, like, I don't know what I'm doing. I can create content, I can record videos, I can do that stuff, but I'm up to 4 sites. I've got a 5th one on the way. I have no idea how I got any of them connected with and integrated with Ezoic and all of the functionality, but tech support's been great. Like, they help me whenever I get stuck. At one point, my main site went completely offline. I had no idea what to do, how to fix the DNS, and tech support walked me through it. So the reality is, like, we're good at patient care. We're good at helping people. We're not so good at the technical side, but you guys have really done a great job for me and for associates that I work with that are also working with Ezoic. So I just want to say thank you so much. Thanks for taking the time to come talk to my community, share your experiences and the information you have. And then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and put all of the contact information for Ezoic down in the show notes and the description of this video. If you had kind of one thing, going back to like that healthcare provider who's just struggling, margins are getting thin, frustration is going up, they want to provide for their family, they're incredibly knowledgeable and good at what they do in healthcare, but they know that they have to have some other way to pay the bills and kind of monetize the 20 years of history they have in their head. Like, what would be 1 or 2 things you would leave them with after this?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing I would tell them is, I think especially in their case, this applies probably more aptly, but it's the same thing I tell a lot of my friends that have either businesses or something that they're working on that they need something more out of. And the thing that I would say is that there's almost no better from an ROI perspective investment of your time in those cases, because number one, by publishing content on the web, if you have expert insight or you have something that is of value, number one, you can use that to market yourself. So you can market your business and sort of like what you do that way. But outside of that, it's the actual hard ROI of that content on the web as well. So it can earn some cash. So you can think about it as terms of this content is going to help market your business. At the same time, it's also going to help you actually earn some physical cash. And one of the things that I think is, the no-brainer part is that if you have the content already, or you have the knowledge already, and just getting the content onto a page or something like that. That's why we built Ezoic, was to make it really easy. Like you mentioned, the site speed and leap. We wanted to, number one, eliminate sort of the cost that sort of like suck up the overhead of somebody that wants to try to start these things, while at the same time removing a lot of the overhead that accumulates over time as you get more advanced. I mean, the enterprise publishers that we've worked with, people like Cosmopolitan or Popular Mechanics or Men's Journal, like they have the same problems that small publishers have, except they're just they look different. So small publishers, you can't hire a team of people, so you need technology to sort of support you and your best interest when you might not know a lot about hosting, or you might not know a lot about WordPress frameworks or something like that. But the large publishers, they hire people for these things, but then you've got these sort of siloed things where the ads person and the SEO person and the DNS person, they're all communicating and have different goals. So there's no balance. And so they need something that sort of like makes sure that nobody is overreaching or damaging something that lives in another area. And that's why we built the technology. Is machines are really good at this, and they solve a lot of those problems. And primarily they just allow people that have information and content to be able to get it out there and make money from it. And I think, in your space in particular, it's something where there's a gap, like I said, in the market when we first started. And yeah, I think that there's a real opportunity there for somebody that wants to commit to it.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much. Don't disappear. I'm just going to wrap this up. So guys, if you've been watching, if you watched this far, the whole idea is we want to protect our passion. We want to make sure that we can continue to deliver the patient care that we believe patients deserve. And one of the best ways to protect that passion is to find profit somewhere else that can fund the joy that we have in treating. So guys, go to Ezoic, check out the website, take a look at my website or any others for examples, find that inspiration and go ahead and get started. Tyler, one more time, thanks so much for being on with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. It's been a pleasure.